Yeah, Esther, great. I'm very looking forward to your presentation. But before you start, maybe you can tell some words about yourself, about your probably also motivation to take part in the LERI project.
Yeah, my name is Esther Benes. I'm from Vienna. I was born in Austria. I'm an English and French teacher in Gymnasium am Augarten. And given that I'm a language teacher myself, and as I teach foreign languages, language friendliness is just like really at the heart of my teaching. And that's just one of the reasons, or one of the many reasons, why I gladly participated in this project.
Super. Very curious now to hear what you exactly designed.
You want to have an easy start into language-friendly teaching, but you don't really know how? Well, then my language-friendly lesson is perfect for you, because I designed tasks and activities that you can introduce in your teaching at any point, really, without having to do much prep work. These tasks are perfect if your students don't really know each other yet, if they come to your school for the first time and you need some icebreaker activities, but you can also include them at a later point, as you would with a foreign language class, where you introduce the first words that you need for a language, as for example, if you want to present yourself and just say hello with learners who already know each other.
Okay, so let's start right off. As I said, I teach in Vienna. I'm an English and French teacher, and I designed a language appreciation starter kit. What that means is I tried to make a collection of 9 tasks, which can be used separately or combined into a teaching unit, and they are supposed to introduce teachers to language-friendly teaching. They should be an easy start into language-friendly teaching. So if you've never tried language-friendly teaching before, this starter kit is supposed to help you. Yeah, one of the reasons for choosing this topic was to introduce teachers who are just really unfamiliar with the concept of language awareness and language-friendly teaching, to kind of give them an introduction to this approach and to show them that it's not necessarily a complicated process. And one of the aims was also to encourage general pride in multilingualism, the inclusion of students and parents as expert speakers of their L1, introducing L1 into daily teaching, and thus really just making multilingualism a part of daily teaching. One of the tasks that are included in this activity or in this collection, in this toolkit, are those language portraits, which you can see on the left-hand side. The basic concept is that the students just show how important or which place a certain language that they speak plays in their life, and they should color this body shape with regard to the importance of the different languages. And on the right-hand side, you see posters that my students had to design, because one of the activities includes presenting yourself in your L1. And that's what you can see. That was kind of the homework. The instruction that they had was to make a poster presenting themselves, and they should get the help of their parents, because sometimes my students weren't really sure how to write that down. So that was one way of going about it. Here you've got a close-up of the language portraits. As you can see, my students are really diverse. For example, on the left-hand side, you see a student who speaks German, but also a little bit of English and Italian. And as you can see, German is really in her heart. So it's like the most important language for her. Whereas another student who was raised speaking Dari and Farsi claims that German is actually at the most important language for her, and she colored German. She colored the heart in the color that was assigned German. About the activities, well, the main objectives, as I said, was that students should be able to present themselves in their L1. They should become aware of differences and also similarities between the L1 and the language of instruction. They should be able to learn to include L1 into the daily learning process. So they should become aware that actually their native language is something that they can use as a tool for their learning process. And at the same time, ideally, they should also become more proficient in their L1. For example, I've got students who kind of are starting to become literate in their L1 because they are kind of just starting to get interested in being able to write the language that they speak at home as well. So they never learned how to write these languages, but they see that there's a value in it and they're starting to become interested and they're trying to kind of teach themselves a little bit as well. Yeah, and for the teachers, I think it's really important to become more aware of your students' prior knowledge and abilities, because only then can you enable students to share and use this knowledge that they have. And it's also important to encourage parents to participate in the child's learning process, because sometimes parents just don't feel like they can help their children because they don't speak the language of instruction. But in their L1, they actually usually can. So that's something really important to take away from this, I think. One of the things I want to share with you is how I implemented task number 9, which was a guided tour through the school building. I had year 4 students and my first graders, so kids that just came to our school. And the year 4 students were supposed to guide the newcomers through the school. And this time I decided not to do that in German, but to have them do it in their L1. So I grouped students according to their native languages. And this was really something that they took on with excitement. They really were proud to be able to do this in their home language, and also really grateful. One thing that you should maybe take care of is to give students enough time to prepare this, because sometimes they were really worried because they weren't able to say some things in their native language. For example, certain rooms, they weren't really sure how to call them. So it's important to give them enough time to prepare. Yeah, and I would say that the general impact on teaching that I would say influenced me most is do not be afraid to make use of technology. And that really ties in with the students' fear of making mistakes, because it's really easy for them to look up certain words. It's really easy to make them use technology to their advantage. Because of course, we as teachers, we're sometimes not able to help them in this respect, but technology can, and it's just such an easy way to get rid of problems this way. So the general impact of the LERI project for me, I would say language-friendly teaching can be included in daily teaching without much preparation even. Sometimes it's not really important to prepare a huge lesson. It's most important that your students become aware that you're interested and that you care, and then they will just start from they will just share things with you and you can learn from them. This really, yeah, sometimes just goes by itself. I would say that language-friendly teaching really strengthens the personal relationship between the teacher and the learner, because you get a more holistic picture of your students. It encourages parents to play an active role as well in their child's learning process. As I said, sometimes they feel like they cannot really help their kid in their learning process, but once they once they see that they are able to use their L1 and that they can, in fact, help their children, this is really something important to take away from this, that they don't necessarily need to be able to speak the language of instruction to help their kids. And as I mentioned before, language-friendly teaching is something that can be facilitated by technology, for example, by using Google Translate. It doesn't have to be something very complicated. Again, it's just that online learning tools like memory makers, for example, really help us out in this respect. Digital tools that I used in this lesson plan, for example, are in task 4. I used Kahoot, something that everyone knows. It's just a tool that you can use for making language quizzes. And in task number 8, where I talk about a multilingual vocabulary log, students can either do a handwritten form in their vocabulary book, or they can use an app like puzzle.org. And this just enables students to create memory-style games, and they can also include the audio. So sometimes if kids are not able to write down a word in their L1, they can just make an audio file with that, upload this, and then they can also write down the translation of the target language. So for example, in my case, that was English, and another, like the translation in their L1 or in German, depending on what the students want. Yeah, and in general, of course, something that my students always use are online dictionaries, if they're not able to say what they want to say. Yeah, I would say that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.